All right, guys, once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast talking Auburn football. Go ahead and like this video, comment, and subscribe to Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn. Man, I know that's a long name. I don't know how I came up with that. I don't know. It just kind of stuck. Matter of fact, I was in another group, and I actually asked one of the moderators. His name is Lamar. Big shout out to Lamar and TFG. That's one of the groups that I started this whole podcasting thing. Anyway, if you feel compelled to do so, go look him up. He has a lot of different type of genres of conversation, especially relationship wise, that he likes to talk about. And I was in his group called For Sports by Sports, and we used to do like a little segment on the big three, which was Auburn, Georgia, and Alabama at the time. That was back in 2017 when Auburn had the big win over Alabama and Georgia. Real exciting time, and that kind of kicked off my little podcasting deal or whatever. But either way, I was trying to figure out a name, and he thought, hell, Vernon Speaks Sports is pretty cool. I mean, and then I added the Auburn to it to, help kind of attract some of the Auburn fans to my channel, because, there wasn't like a lot of, ongoing coverage of Auburn sports. So I was like, man, let me go on and do this, because I'm one of those guys that's always looking on 24/7, always trying to find some kind of Auburn content. So I wanted to help the Auburn fan base out. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Go ahead and like this video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle. Bye week, guys. Gus Malzahn has never lost a game coming out of a bye week. That is going to be put up to a serious test when the Georgia Bulldogs come to Jordan-Hare Stadium in about a week from now. How exciting is that? You know what I'm saying? The Georgia game is already here. The good news is next year, in 2020, we'll get to see that game a little bit earlier, and that will kind of help out with the whole excitement. Okay, you got Georgia, and then a few weeks away, you got Alabama, instead of it being kind of sort of back-to-back as it's been in the past. Big shout-out to the schedule makers. A lot of folks were kind of fired up about the fact that Auburn has to play LSU late in the season. But, hey, this is the thing that it guarantees to me. Having to play those games late, it guarantees in a way that you're still in it, that you're not going to be discounted or disqualified until the end. Because just think about it now. Auburn played LSU a couple of weeks ago, kind of sort of booted them out, or at least kicked them outside of the door for the time being by losing that game. But if you have the LSU game, say where Samford is, which would be a hell of a sandwich though, Georgia, LSU, and Alabama, like this year, that wouldn't have been what you wanted. But at least you still have some degree of contention, so to speak. So moving forward, though, off of this bye week, a lot of great takeaways from the Tigers that I hope you guys paid attention to. Number one, again, in that Ole Miss game, a lot of reserves got some great playing time. I'm really liking the emergence of Jamie and Sherwood and my man Smoke Monday. Smoke does not mind coming up and laying you out. Another thing I saw too is those guys kind of look like the two Stooges earlier this year, because they were just missing assignments, got beat on a play against Kent State. But they are really, really emerging into their roles, which I'm, super impressed with Jamie and Sherwood and Smoke Monday. And the good news about it is it's given Kevin Steele and Travis Williams, co-defensive coordinator, all-SEC linebacker from back in 2004, grossly undersized, but he made it happen in the middle. Really giving those guys, from a coaching standpoint, the ability to diversify what they can do and the type of concepts that they can present on the football field. I.e., you look back at the LSU game. I said this time and time again. There's no freaking way this would have happened last year. Auburn would have got torched last year. First of all, your three linebackers as a collective whole was just too slow. Your cornerbacks were kind of inexperienced. And I just don't think Kevin Steele would have had the confidence to run that kind of set he probably he would have gotten beaten worse by trying to be creative with those guys versus this year, especially adding a guy like Owen Papo and the speed of Zacoby McClain and Chandler Wooten and KJ Britt at linebacker. I told y'all at the beginning of the season that I thought Auburn was definitely going to upgrade athletically at the linebacker position, and nothing could have been closer to the truth when we look at it from a result standpoint. Right now, the Auburn defense is one of the better defenses in the country, only allowing about 17 points a game. That's almost a whole point less than, well, actually almost 2 points than what they allowed last year. My favorite stat is the goal. See, I like when a coach can set a goal and actually achieve that goal. At the beginning of the season, we talked about this over and over again. Kevin Steele, all of his staff, they got together and said, hey, look, if we accomplish this goal per rushing attempt, I think we'll be okay. 3.3 was the goal, because last year was 3.7. But when you go in and you dissect the little things and you execute them, then you start to see a high-level result. Even though it doesn't really jump out, the stat doesn't jump out at you when you look at it. But when you look at it from a comparative standpoint from, say, 2018 to now, you see how those little things make a difference. 3.3 yards per carry this year. What does that mean? That means Auburn is not allowing as many big runs. That means they're not allowing running backs to dominate as they have in the past. Now, Elair from LSU, he did have a relative amount of success that Auburn is not accustomed to. Also, I can't think of the quarterback's name, but I thought the quarterback from Ole Miss had a relative amount of success in the Ole Miss game running the football. But one thing I was impressed with Auburn against Ole Miss, if we think about it in past times, when you have those down games and you have a team that runs the type of off-balance offense that Ole Miss has, usually they have success because Auburn usually wasn't focused or mentally prepared defensively. That's one thing I can say about this defense. They were actually missing Marlon Davidson and Jeremiah Denson and having to, really rely on some reserves. Derek Brown even had a limited role in this game, but those guys still really, really shine in this Ole Miss game. So I was definitely impressed with that. So moving forward, Auburn definitely has to continue to play intense on defense. I have a really, really good feeling about Auburn, especially with how their secondary has emerged and how they have the opportunity to really, 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 really put themselves in a position to get in shutdown mode against Georgia. The biggest factor, of course, you got to shut down DeAndre Swift because, he's just a game-breaking play waiting to happen. But I think Auburn has the personnel to do this. First of all, they're relatively injury-free on defense, coming straight off of a bye week, plenty of rest, plenty of relaxation, plenty of focus to where you can really zero in on some video footage of some tendencies and things of that nature to where you're fully focused. Then you're back in front of the home crowd. 2:30, Auburn, this is one of the most intense games that can be played at Jordan-Hare Stadium. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this one actually turns out. Auburn's offensive line, of course, the unforced errors have to stop. I noted earlier this year on this particular channel that I thought Caleb Kim was a liability. And it turns out he kind of was. Not physical enough, unforced errors. Matter of fact, Gus Malzahn had enough in the LSU game, yanked him out after Auburn loses 30 yards, 20-plus yards off of a errant snap to Bo Nix when Auburn actually had a chance in pretty good field position to at least put themselves in a position to, get a field goal. Auburn had a little bit of momentum going at that time, but that's something that's definitely got to be fixed. The unforced errors, no excuse for it. You talk about a senior offensive line, absolutely no excuse. Now, the good news is when these guys actually get past the unforced errors, they're actually okay. The only issue I have with this particular offensive line is they get zero push between the center and the guard on both sides. But when you start to ease on out, kind of get onto the the C and D gaps and beyond, they're actually okay. They're good at sealing things down. They're good when they're able to do the pulling guard thing. They're good when that happens, and they do a good job of blocking downfield on screens. So I'm looking to see if Auburn's offensive line, we're not talking about Bo today, because we all know what it is with Bo. Bo knows he's got to perform against Georgia. But Gus Malzahn said, hey, we got to make the guys good around him. And in making the guys good around you, of course, the offensive line definitely has to come through. The wide receivers, one play, if you guys remember, in the Ole Miss game where I started to see some level of maturity with Bo. Bo had time. Bo was flushed out of the pocket, but he had the presence of mind to look downfield and find a receiver and get that receiver to come back, kind of on a hot route. And that was with Eli Stove. He's like, come on back. And he actually made the reception. I think that's something that Auburn needs to utilize more often, is the hot routes. Because in the SEC, you start talking about, competing against these 5-star, 4-star cornerbacks, your initial read is not going to be there. So you're just going to have to buy some time, and some guys are going to have to get open. And then that's when you'll start to see the potential in Bo Nix that we thought that we would see coming out of Pinson Valley High School, 12,000 total yards, and start to hit some of the routes that we think make sense for Bo Nix. Last but not least, from a coaching standpoint, I think Gus Malzahn has done a better job as well of managing his red shirts. Because if you look at last year with Asa Martin transferring because of the mismanagement of the red shirts, I think Gus Malzahn has been a little bit more cognizant of how he's utilized his red shirts. First of all, Derek Hall ain't red shirting. Dude can play. Jaron Handy, also from Mississippi, we might have to rely on him in this stretch. So he might not redshirt. But a guy that I feel will redshirt is guys like Kobe Wooten. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think he needs the red shirt. I think he's had a pretty good showing. I don't believe that the defensive line is in a position to where they have to utilize him. And there are a couple other guys that, we'll look at. Zion Puckett, I think he might be pushing real close to the red shirt point. But either way, with the bye week ending, man, there's some exciting football coming up. Leave in the comments, guys, who do you think is going to win between LSU and Alabama? Now, of course, I've been watching both of these teams all year, and, folks want to compare the two receivers cores. Now, I think they're good, but they're good in opposite ways. I don't think, LSU's wide receivers are very good route runners. They're very good at making you uncomfortable because of the schematics. I don't think they have the speed, that game-breaking, scary, have you on edge kind of speed. The way they have you on edge is their ability to scheme routes. They break off into dig routes. They break off into post routes. And their offensive line is pretty good. Joe Burrow does a good job of, he has downfield vision, and he also hurts you with his legs. He can be deadly with his legs. And they are able to generate big plays. However, when I look at Alabama's wide receiver core, these guys are absolutely just elite as far as speed goes. If you get, they are game-breaking receivers to where one missed tackle and they are gone. You have to be very careful with blitz packages, because you blitz package them and then they hit you with a slant, just like against Texas A&M, and they are gone to the house. So I think they are both wide receiver cores are good, but they're good for opposite reasons. Also, you compare Tua Tagovailoa and Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is a very tough guy. Can see the field. He's a very intelligent football player. I think he's going to be playing on Sundays. I'll say this. I think Joe Burrow, from an NFL standpoint, might even be a little bit more valuable than Tua Tagovailoa because of his durability, and the system that he's running now is more realistic as to what he's going to see in the NFL. So, pretty reasonable comparison there. Then you look at the offense. You look at the defense for both sides. Definitely, LSU's has some key injuries to where they're going to be without some guys, but with Grant Delpit at the safety position, able to get some of that range, but he's going to have a lot of help, because Alabama has a lot of speed in this in their wide receiver core, and with Najee Harris, they have the great ability to run the football. So if I'm looking at this, team for team, kind of looking at both teams all year, bold prediction, I look at Alabama taking this one. They're at home. They've had time to dissect what LSU likes to do. LSU kind of showed a little bit of vulnerability against Auburn, because what people don't realize is even though LSU had 500 yards of offensive production, Auburn took away some things that LSU like to do. Number one, if you look at big plays for LSU had 45 yards as their biggest play against Auburn, but then the rest of it, 20 or below. Other games, they have 45, 60, 50, just big plays galore. One thing about it is LSU this year, their average biggest play of the game has been 56 yards. And if you think about how far 56 yards is, for a team to get you with, 50, half of the field plus 6 yards, that's pretty hard to recover from. But Auburn was able to take that part of their game away. Another thing too, Joe Burrow coming into the Auburn game had 12.2 yards every time he threw the ball. Auburn game, 7.6. That's a huge difference. Accounts for the big plays. Make you work for it. Also, make Clyde Edwards-Helaire more active. And yes, he was. And then he hurt Auburn in a lot of ways. But if you're going to stay in the game against LSU, you got to make them run the ball. And that's what Auburn did. Hence the score 23-20. Also, you got to get some help. You got to get some turnovers. You got to steal a possession, like Garrett Danielson likes to say. Auburn stole one down near the goal line. Interception by Roger McCreary. Those are things that you have to do to beat LSU. And I think Alabama just has a little bit more from a talent standpoint than Auburn, and will be able to do a lot more things, especially offensively, against LSU. So I'm looking at a 31-17 win, honestly. I know a lot of folks are like, what are you talking about? Alabama 31, LSU 17. Once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart for the podcast Talking Auburn Football. Go ahead and like this video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle.